What is going on, RotoGrinders? Welcome back to Sports Card Grinders, where you guessed it, we talk sports cars. I'm your host, Dean. Usual rules apply. I don't really know anything, but the experts here do. I'll just be here asking some questions. Speaking of the experts, batting first, leading up, it's Simon Edwards. Simon, what's up in your world? Tell me. I know we're going to talk about it to some degree, but tell me about your article that's coming out here in RG.
I got an article coming out this week just targeting speculative quarterbacks in the NFL. Kind of piggybacking off that Cam Newton news over the weekend. We had a couple guys, Chief and Rhino, that had huge nights on Sunday when the news came out that Cam was on the New England Patriots now.
Yeah, we'll delve into that more in a second. We'll talk about the Cam Newton news, how it changes things, and how some of the guys in our RG Discord are super happy about it because, like you said, Chief was one of those guys hyping, buying Cam and how much it sort of changed the cost of Cam from before the trade and after the trade. We're going to get into our biggest investment payoffs that we've had in the past, some speculative plays, like you said, all around the horn, the importance of scarcity, lots of fun topics as far as this show today. Also joining us, welcome back from SportsCardInvestor, it's Geoff Wilson. Geoff, what's going on?
Hey, Dean. Happy to be here, man.
Tell us about the SCI if those are not aware for whatever reason.
Sure. SportsCardInvestor.com, a great source for information regarding investing in sports cards. We also have a membership program, and the membership program gives you access to our Market Movers data tool, which we'll see during the show here today, but it's the ultimate way to understand the sports card market and where investment opportunities might lie.
Josh, welcome back. How is your series going here on RG as far as your article series? I believe you're still talking about the rookies from 2012, 2013.
Yeah, we did put out another piece of the 2012 Prism set last week. I think this week we're actually going to focus more on some target players for some current playoff teams and some teams that didn't make the playoffs for NBA and what their values could do in the offseason.
Any specific players, anybody you're willing to tease just yet, or you're still kind of figuring it out?
Well, one guy I might be talking about is Sekou Demboye on the Pistons. His prices kind of came back down to earth after his couple good game stretch. But I think, he's only 19, so I think with some good games next year, we might be able to get back to those levels. Also
going to welcome Brennan. Brennan, how about yourself? What's up as far as your articles? I've not seen. Has one dropped recently or no?
No, the most recent one still from probably a week and a half ago now. It's the Luka LeBron market cap analysis. But I think as we saw in the Discord this week, there was a lot of conversations about rising population counts. And I think that, that article, the takeaway from that, and we'll talk about it a little bit later, is that for someone like Luka, maybe a population can be as high as it is right now. So that's the most recent one. The next one coming out probably in a week or so. But yeah, doing good and glad to be here.
Awesome. Glad to have you. Going to talk about Cam Newton, like we said. Simon, you were on a show, I believe, just yesterday, talking with Chief and talking with one of the guys in the Discord as well, too. And obviously, you guys can find that on YouTube as well. Hey, if you guys are watching on YouTube, feel free to like and subscribe. Much appreciate that, and make some comments as well, too. We do read those. We do listen. And, hey, any sort of topics you want to see covered and shows in the future, we'll do our best to knock those out as well. Simon, there was some victory laps going on there in the Discord channel because, of course, Chief was talking about it. I think even on the show last week, he was talking about buying some Cam. And, of course, the dominoes fell in the right way. Now he's presumably the starting quarterback for New England. We'll see how that goes down going forward, but that's the smart money suggests that. I believe it's currently 3-1 or 4-1 that he is instead of, it's like plus 300 as far as starting week one. Simon, feel free to give us a taste of as far as what that video was, what you guys talked about, and also mention the Discord for those that are not aware.
Yeah, well, a couple months ago when we first started getting back into these sports cards, Chief and I were talking pretty consistently over Slack about guys that we wanted to target. And Cam Newton was one of those guys that we were talking about pretty consistently. He brought that over into the RG Discord channel and started to accumulate Cam's rookie cards. You could, at that time, you could get his PSA 10 2011 Topps Chrome cards for under $30, which is pretty crazy for a guy with the background of Cam and the likelihood that he would end up on a team. So I know Chief and Rhino over in the Discord, we're talking him up pretty significantly, getting everybody to invest in it. I got in on a few Cam Newton rookie cards myself, And Chief and Rhino just absolutely were loading up on Cam. So when that news came out on Sunday that Cam had just signed with New England, his cards ended up going from about $24 for that PSA 10. I believe the rookie refractor Chrome card shot up to about $250, literally within hours. So we were all scrambling to make sure to get those cards up on our eBay pages. And I sold mine. I bought mine. Mine was actually a PGA 10, believe it or not. Like that was the grading company that graded the card that I bought. And I sold that. I bought it for about 25. I sold it for 200. And I sold it with no problems either. So those cams were pretty hot that night, and a lot of money was made by Chief and Rhino in particular, and a lot of people in the Discord benefited from it as well.
For those that aren't aware, how would I sign up for the Discord? I know it's free, but how do I do it?
Well, you go into RotoGrinders. You can get there through our video page. If you look in the chat section, if you click on there, you can get to the Discord, the RG Discord server through that. And there's a channel within that RG Discord server called Sports Cards. So if you just jump in there, we got a good mix of experts and people just getting into it. So you can freely ask for advice. Everybody's willing to give you advice and share ideas on players that they're considering, and give you tips on what to look for and what costs too much and what not. You can also figure that stuff out by subscribing to Market Movers subscription over at SportsCardInvestor.com. And if you use the promo code Grinders, you can get 20% off your first payment on any subscription. For that, I'd recommend actually doing the annual, so you can get 20% off the entire year. But Market Movers in general is what you want to subscribe to over there. That really gives you an upper hand on the types of prices that you can bid on for these cards. You don't want to pay too much on eBay, and a lot of times people will list their cards way over what their value is, and you can use that Market Movers tool to determine what the actual value is. So if you have an opportunity to make an offer, or if you're in an auction, you know how much is too much to pay for those cards. But we talk about that type of information pretty frequently in the Discord channel as well. So, you know, like just basically trying to help people not overpay for cards is kind of what's going on in that Discord, and giving people ideas on players that might be the next Cam Newton or might just in general be breakout players.
Simon, thank you for being a good team player and mentioning that promo code. I goofed. I'm a terrible host. I totally forgot. My bad. And as promised, Geoff, we're going to do a little screen share and kind of what Simon was talking about as far as the Cam Newton cards and what happened before the the free agent signing, and what happened afterwards and how much they skyrocketed. Go ahead and feel free to take the reins and show off the Market Mover tool there at SCI.
Yeah, so Cam Newton is leading our leaderboard in the last 30 days within our software. His cards are up 425% collectively over the last 30 days. He is now past Colin Kaepernick, who had been the previous leader for the last 30 days, and Pascal Siakam, who has had a strong last month as well in terms of his cards. But you can see with specifically with Newton's cards here how much they've gone up. And if we look at, for example, his 2011 Topps Football base raw card, I'm going to pick this card because it has a lot of transaction volume, so you can get a very accurate trend line, and you can see what happened right there. I mean, it's a pretty incredible rise. This card was really just a couple of bucks. I mean, it was as little as $2 or, $2.50 a few days before his signing by the Patriots was announced. And then all of a sudden, this particular card shot up to $26. So you're dealing with an increase of 1,200% for this particular card. And as we look across Cam Newton's different cards, you see the same thing happening. We can look across his graded cards, we can look across his raw cards, and you're going to see, you're going to see a similar type of trend line. I'm going to call up more versions of his cards here. This one right here, let's see, that's his Chrome Football 10. I'm going to turn that one off because that one doesn't have a lot of transaction volume. But the others on the graph here, let me just show sales on the graph. Turn that off. The others on the graph here, you can see now a little more clearly with that one turned off. It didn't have as much transaction volume, how the others have acted and responded. So this one, let's see, this yellow one down here before was the one we were looking at just a minute ago. But now, since the graph has such a higher limit, now that we added this PSA 10 card to it, you can see, this one kind of now looks small in comparison. And when you look at how huge the rise of his 2011 Topps Football PSA 10 has been, which is this line, and this was a card that was selling for $42 just a few days ago and is now all the way up at $272. So definitely an incredible few days here for people who own Cam Newton cards.
So what do you think? I'm going to ask you upon your speculation cap. Like, how much is of that price is baked in that he's going to be like, okay, obviously it's now he has an opportunity with New England. How much of it is baked in that he's going to be good for New England? Like, where can the ceiling go? Because he's 30 years old. He's coming off some injuries. He's known for having his legs. He feels like an old 30, for me. I can see him theoretically, I think, as a path where he could be a top 7 quarterback in the league. And people can also argue that he's just hurt and beat up, and Stidham's going to overthrow him at some point, and maybe he's just, his prices on his cards will plummet. So if he's quote unquote good with New England, Geoff, how much further can these prices go?
I don't think they can go a ton further unless he's really good with New England. Now, certainly if he leads them deep into the playoffs, Super Bowl type season, then sure, they could go up further. I mean, these are pretty low population cards. There were not a ton of sports cards printed back in 2011. This PSA 10, let's see what the pop count is on it. We now have pop counts available for some cards within Market Movers, although I don't see actually the pop count on that card right now, so I'd have to go look it up. But I believe it's a less than 1,000 type of pop count on that card. I think it's pretty small. So I think, so there is the possibility, because these are fairly low population cards, that there could be, you could have demand exceeding supply if he has a really good season. But honestly, with how these have already popped in recent days, to be honest, if I were holding a bunch of Cam Newton cards right now, I'd kind of think about selling, because if you don't sell at this moment with where prices are, you're definitely taking a risk. He needs to have that type of really good season in order to see these prices escalate further, in my opinion.
Yeah, and the other part of that is New England, you can argue, has the worst collection of skill position players in the entire league. Sonny Michel at running back. Harry, of course, is a young project who might be good, but like Mohamed Sanu, Edelman, he's an old 34. Lacoste is not a very sexy tight end. We were talking about this before the show, Simon. Like, I don't know. Like, can you speculate? What do you think? It feels like the range of outcomes, it feels really, really drastic and really, really big for Cam. And also, New England's not really totally committed to him. They signed basically at $1 million, $2 million guaranteed or something like that. Mostly it's as far as incentives. So if for whatever reason he's not looking good in the preseason, they're not married to him. And it's certainly not beyond this year. Simon, do you want to speculate? Well, what do you think Cam's going to do this year?
Well, I don't think that they're going to dump him in the preseason like some of the speculation has been. I think New England's very careful about their decision-making. I don't think that they would jeopardize Stidham's development throughout the preseason by bringing in a guy like Cam unless they intended to start Cam. So I don't really buy into the possibility that they're just going to cut him loose in the preseason. I think Newton's here to play the entire season. Dean, we discussed that he doesn't have a ton of weapons to throw to.
Yeah.
We saw what Brady was able to do with the wide receivers there last year. I think N'Keal Harry has a lot of potential. Obviously, he's in his second year this year. Last year, he was a little bit behind the ball as far as development. I think he was injured though for the first part of that season, so he missed some of his crucial game time and reps. So he came in towards the end of the season, didn't really impress too much, but I still think that he has potential to be a great receiver. And we'll see how Cam's able to do with him. Obviously, Cam doesn't have the same accuracy as Tom Brady, but we'll see how they gel and maybe they're able to be a good tandem together.
Yeah, I mean, Cam has the legs too, for sure. It's another out, obviously. As far as Stidham, is anybody thinking that Stidham's prices are appealing now? Maybe there's some upside. I'm sure nobody's buying Stidham now because he's now, we're assumed, the backup, and he's still super young, obviously. Does anybody see a buying opportunity in Stidham? Is that risk versus reward for anyone?
I personally think that there might be in the months ahead. I'm actually calling up the chart of Stidham's card prices, and it's too soon to see any type of drop, because the thing is, and you can see on the chart, like, there's not really a big drop here that you can attribute, to what just happened. And the reason why is typically what happens when this type of news occurs is Stidham's cards just stop selling. So it's not that all of a sudden the prices go immediately down, because the people who have them basically at this point are probably like, okay, well, my two choices are I either sell them at a large discount, or I just hold on to them and let's see how this Cam Newton thing plays out. And I think that a lot of people are just going to hold on to them for that reason. So, however, if this goes on for a while, then what you'll see is some Stidham owners going, okay, I just got to get out from under this guy's cards, and they'll start listing them. But I would suspect you'll see that downward trend over the next few months, not necessarily like this week. So, I keep an eye on it. Once that downward trend starts to emerge, then maybe then. But it's not like an opportunity to go out and buy them today, because a lot of the sellers are just pulling them off the market.
Yeah, I mean, I guess why sell on the floor? Why sell at the bottom? There's still some hope that you still have some outs if you're a Stidham owner. So I guess that makes a lot of sense. Any other final thoughts here as far as Cam? Does anybody have anything they want to add here, or shall we move on?
I would just add about Stidham. Yeah, I think Geoff's. I'm with Geoff. I think you just wait until that price starts to drop, and when it start to plateau at a lower price, then maybe you consider jumping into it, because like you mentioned earlier, Dean, Cam's on a 1-year contract, so we don't know how long he's going to be in New England, and we don't know if he's going to last the entire season. I think he'll start the season as the starter. I don't think he's going to be off the team in the preseason, but if he gets hurt or anything happens during the regular season, then Stidham will get his opportunity.
Yeah, again, for what it's worth, DK Sportsbook currently has who is the week 1 starting quarterback for New England. Cam Newton is -400 and Stidham is +300. So at least the betting market strongly think it's going to be Cam being the quarterback for week 1, and that makes sense. He's much more the established guy. Stidham is still kind of sort of a wild card. Brennan, answer me this. It doesn't have to be Cam, but just anybody in specific. Like, how do you go about? Give me a good strategy to speculate on cards. Like, what makes you say this guy is worth speculating on because X, Y, and Z can happen, and all of a sudden his cards are going to go up?
Sure, absolutely. So when I think of speculating, I think of lower cost cards, guys that haven't broken out yet. And from that perspective, I consider it prospecting. There's other ways to speculate, like the Cam Newton scenario we just talked about, with speculation that he would join the Patriots. So there's a lot of different ways to speculate. From a prospecting perspective, I think you have to be very cost conscious, and that not only includes the price of the card, but also the additional overhead, the shipping, the fees, and everything else like that. And so what I like to do is use COMC as a great place to prospect. You can get cards for $1, you can get cards for less, and you don't have to pay shipping. They have a 5% fee, which is much lower than what you would pay on eBay. And you can hold those cards and sell once the guy breaks out. So a good way to identify those players that you want to buy on a site like COMC, StarStock is new and a similar scenario. I first look at guys in the most recent draft classes. Very rarely do you have a guy that's in the middle or late end of his career that breaks out. And so I look at some of the younger players, maybe the 3 or 4 most recent draft classes, and I look at data. And I don't just look at the overall counting numbers, but I also look at efficiency as well as improvement. One thing I like to do is see, if a guy, let's say De'Aaron Fox, can't shoot threes, did he improve from his rookie to his sophomore year, from his sophomore to his junior year? And those are the things I like to look at, guys that are improving on areas that they need to improve on. And then also what kind of hype those guys have. Are their YouTube videos being watched? Are they talked about on Twitter? You can, by being in these Discords, by listening to the markets, you can see what guys are hot and what guys, people like to talk about. And so write down a list of 5-6 names you want to research, and do the research, and then buy their cards in bulk. One example this year for me was Jaylen Brown, and it worked out really well. I bought cards for under $1, and I'm now selling them for $6 or $7 on COMC. And if you looked at his stats relative to Jason Tatum, the difference in the price just didn't work out. Now, if I would have bought the cards for $1 on eBay, I would have paid $3 in shipping, and there goes all of the profit. So you have to be very cost conscious. You have to look at the data, not just what everyone else is saying to buy or what to target, and be willing to hold. A guy like DeJounte Murray from the Spurs was going to break out last year and got hurt. So anybody that bought his cards in the preseason last year will probably need to wait until sometime next year when the youth movement happens in San Antonio and he gets another shot to break out. So you have to be patient, you have to be cost conscious, and you have to do the research, because when you speculate and you prospect, there is more risk than buying your Lukas and your LeBrons and your Currys and all that kind of stuff.
Buying cards on COMC versus buying cards on eBay, give me the pros and cons of each.
Sure. So the pros for COMC are there's no shipping and handling involved. The cards are in a vault or a warehouse somewhere that COMC manages. And when you buy the card, the way I assume it is just in the system, they, change the pink slips from the old owner to you is basically what they do. And so when you buy a card on COMC, it's not going to get shipped to you unless you ask them to ship it to you, but it is put in your quote unquote inventory. So you buy the card, they take their 5%, and that's it. Another pro is you can see historical sales prices on COMC. So COMC has these things called history points, and it lets you see things like how many sold by quarter, what was the highest sale, and when that sale happened. So you can actually do some research in the COMC platform. It doesn't represent eBay or anything like what market movers can show you, but it gives you an idea of what the market on COMC has been for that card. And you can buy very quickly as well. If I wanted to buy 20 Jaylen Browns on eBay, I'd have to go to 20 different listings. I'd have to pay shipping on all of those unless I was lucky enough to find a guy that was selling a lot. And so on COMC, you can buy in bulk much quicker and for much cheaper without the hassle of shipping and handling. Now, eBay is nice, one, because it's the biggest platform. So it's got a very good selection of cards, as well as it's got great sales history as well. And you get the card immediately. I am having COMC send me some cards, and I requested it about a month ago. They're so far behind that I'm not going to get those cards until August. So if you want a card to send out for grading immediately, or if you want a card to try to flip immediately, COMC is probably not a great choice, because there is going to be a wait to get the card in the mail. So COMC is great for lower end cards that you don't necessarily want to take possession of. And you don't want to deal with storing them and shipping them and all that kind of stuff. eBay is by far the largest, platform as of right now. And it's probably the best platform to get your cards within a week or so to ship right away. And the pictures, if you have a good seller, are also better on eBay. COMC just takes a scan of the front and back, and you can't really see as clearly as you can on some of the eBay stuff.
All right, Josh, I did not forget about you. Your thoughts as far as COMC versus eBay, anything you want to add there, any personal experience as far as buying on both? And the original question, your best strategy as far as speculating on cards?
Pretty similar to Brennan in terms of speculation, looking at younger guys from recent draft classes. A guy I spoke of at the beginning, Sekou, his prices shot up when he had a couple of good games and then plummeted after he kind of struggled. But again, he's only 19 years old, so he's not, a 24-year-old rookie who probably has a capped upside. A guy like RJ Barrett, great pedigree, great, high school career, college career. He's only 19. His prices are pretty low for the type of ceiling that he has. So looking at those kind of guys in terms of projecting future investments. I don't have a ton of experience with COMC. I browse there looking at prices. I do have an account, but I actually haven't purchased or sold anything on there yet. I'm going to break.
Is there a reason why you hesitated, or it's just whatever reason hasn't happened?
I don't know. I just haven't done it. Most of my buying is just on eBay. I do a little bit on Instagram and Facebook, but for eBay, if I can find cheap enough singles where they're not gouging the shipping costs, I like those. I do try to find cheaper lots. I'll purchase multiple items from the same seller to combine shipping, save some money that way. So there's ways to save some money on shipping on eBay, but not as much as you could on ComC with them just storing them.
What can you add here, Geoff? How about yourself? Any preference as far as ComC versus eBay, or I suppose it's case dependent?
Well, I mean, I think the points that everybody's made so far is correct, that ComC is a better source for flipping lower end cards because you get away from those shipping fees and all that type of thing. StarStock, which is a new platform, it has a lot of similarities to ComC, and they're really trying to orient their platform around flippers and make it really convenient for people to flip. In fact, we've got at SportsCardInvestor, we got a promo deal going with StarStock that if you use SCI when you register for StarStock as a referral code, you can get free bonus money in your account. So it'd be worth people trying out and seeing kind of what they're doing. It's a pretty unique model. In terms of flipping in general, so I like to do some prospecting as well. I think that it's smart for sports card investors, just like if you were to build a stock portfolio or a mutual fund portfolio, you're going to want different types of investments in that portfolio. And some you might be willing to take more of a risk with, and others you're going to want as safer long-term investments. And the same thing applies to sports cards. I like looking at your sports card portfolio and what your investment mix is. And so a portion of my sports card portfolio is always going to be designated towards, shorter term, higher risk prospecting, flipping opportunity. And then a lot of it's going to be dedicated towards, more of your veteran stars, established players, Hall of Famers, that type of thing. In the prospecting category, I personally really like to go for basketball players that are entering their second year in the league. I want to see players who I think are going to make that jump from their rookie year to their second year. This past off season, I was buying a lot of Luka, although he was kind of obvious. Luka and Trey were both kind of obvious from their performance their first year that they were probably going to have a really good second year, but that was proven out, and both of their card prices went up tremendously their second year. I was also buying a lot of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who was a little bit more under the radar heading into this season. And of course, he has really broken out this season and has really shined for Oklahoma City. So he's one that I would say was a little bit more of a speculative investment going into the season. I put a fair amount of money into him, and it turned out to be really good. I also bought a lot of Jaren Jackson Jr. That one's worked out really well. And I bought a lot of Mitchell Robinson, which hasn't worked out so well. His prices haven't really gone down, but they haven't really gone up. They've remained kind of flat. And while, most other players around him have been going up. And I blame that on the Knicks because Mitchell Robinson is a heck of a player, and I think he's unfortunately stuck on a really bad basketball team right now.
They refuse to start him, and I guess kind of part of that is because he's really handsy and he gets in foul trouble really quickly, and maybe they're afraid of him getting 2 quick fouls and, 8 minutes or 2 minutes into the game sometimes he's got 2 fouls and all of a sudden he's playing the foul game the whole time. But I love watching him play, and I did see a video of him. He's working on his 3-ball apparently too in 2020. Mitch Rob gets a 3. One of the most exciting blockers in the league too, and he's in New York, so theoretically if he's good, he'll get a bump there from being in that city. So I like that as a speculative play as well. While I have you, Geoff, we're going to go around the horn on this one actually. Your the best one you can think of, your favorite, your best investment you can think of as far as a return, and if you can think of maybe a worst one as well too, like best and worst, and the reasons why it may have broken your way, it may have not broken your way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I bought so last year I went to the National Sports Collectors Convention in Chicago, and from one dealer at that convention, I bought a Michael Jordan 86 Fleer rookie card, BGS 9.5. That has gone up. That went up in value about 3x since last summer, what I paid for it. I then bought 10 Luka Doncic. Actually, it was from a dealer right next to him. I bought 10 Luka Doncic Prism Silvers, which were about $520 each is what I paid for them at the time. Those things are now like $2,500, $3,000 is I think where they currently are. Unfortunately, I sold out of them at $1,800. So I got out of them a little bit early perhaps, but it was still a 3.5x return on investment. And then I also bought some Jaren Jackson, which have gone up in value as well. So that was, I'd say overall, that one particular buy that I did from this group of dealers right there who were together at the same booth at the National Sports Card Convention collectively probably turned into my best overall buy. I actually did a video on my YouTube channel about that a few weeks ago. In terms of worst, so thankfully I haven't had a whole lot of cards go down in value, and we've had overall the sports card market rise. Two things I've messed up on though. One is selling too early. Obviously, the Lucas are an example. I also bought a bunch of boxes of Prism first off the line basketball and sold those when they doubled what I paid for them. But unfortunately, since then, they've gone up another few times. So I could have made a little bit more on those, but you never know. And my rule of thumb on that is, look, if you're able to make a good profit, if you're able to double or triple, get your chips off the table, put them into some other investments. You can never quite time when the top of the market is. I guess one player that I did kind of bust on this past off season, was I bought Ryan Finley. I thought I predicted correctly that Cincinnati was going to struggle and that Andy Dalton was going to be shown the door at some point. So that part I was correct on, but my speculation was that Ryan Finley was going to take the starting job, which he did, but that then Ryan Finley was going to perform well and then was going to be the starter for years to come. That part of the prediction, obviously not correct. So my Ryan Finley cards never really turned into much.
Simon, same questions.
Well, my best investment was the Cam Newton rookie refractor card that I mentioned. That was one that Chief was promoting pretty heavily in the Discord channel, and I finally caved in and bought it. Got it under $30, sold it for $200. I also was mentioning, I think last week, I bought a wax box of Garbage Pail Kids, so it's not really sports card related. Yeah. I bought it for like $30 about 30 years ago. I sold it for 311. So as far as ROI, that was a pretty good ROI. It just took 30 years to get there. And are you asking worst too?
Yeah. What do you have for as far as your worst? Whatever reason, kind of blew up in your face.
Worst would be every other card I bought in the 90s. So yeah.
Yeah, we were talking about this pre-show, and I was telling you my worst was, I was big in the 89. This is going to date myself, of course. 89 Score Football. I love that set. Beautiful set with, Aikman and Sanders and both Sanders, Dion and Barry. And a buddy of mine told me, hey, you should check out this Pro set. 89 Pro set's awesome. It's and he was like a year older. He was like 11 maybe. But he was, he was older and wiser, I thought. And I started buying that garbage, and it didn't turn out the right way, unfortunately. Josh, jump in here as far as your best and worst purchases you can recall.
My best so far, I guess I bought a 2008 Topps LeBron base card. It's the picture where he's throwing the chalk. I bought that for like $10 on Facebook. Sent it to SGC for another 10, so I'm into it for 20. And it graded at a 10, and they're selling for like 250 right now.
Nice.
So, pretty good return on investment there. We've still got a bunch of cards at PSA that, could be much more significant return on investment, depending on what they grade. And I'm so new to the hobby, like the last 6 months, I haven't sold much. So, and like
You haven't bought into a set that turned out to be terrible. You thought you speculate this is going to be good and people are going to want this, and for whatever reason nobody wants it. That hasn't happened just yet.
I mean, some of the grading at PSA could determine me kicking myself in the butt. I probably opened about 30 Prism hanger boxes this year. So those retailed for like 18, and they're selling now for like 150. So that's like $4,500. Now I lucked out and pulled some really nice short print Zions and some short print Jazz. So if those grade 9s or 10s, which I think they should, they're pretty good. I'll make that money back and then some. But if they don't, then yeah, I probably should have just sold the wax. But yeah.
How about yourself, Brennan?
Yeah, so I mentioned the Jaylen Brown that I had bought on ComC. I actually bought 20 of his select concourse for an average of about $1.50, and I've sold over half of them now for an average of about $5. So I've more than tripled my money, and it's gone up since then. I'm going to hold the other ones till the playoffs, but that's going to be a pretty nice profit on a very cheap card on ComC. As far as my worst, I guess all I can really say is I have I've had trouble in the past comping shorter print cards. For instance, I bought a Markel Fultz PSA 10 Optic Gold, so it's out of 10 for I think 300 a few months ago, and ended up selling it for 250. So I took a loss on it because I was noticing all the raws were selling for 100, 150. So considering Fultz was just a player that I like and I kind of wanted to have some of his cards, I figured the money be better spent on one or two raws to try to get them graded. But the problem was there wasn't a big sales history for a PSA 10 cold Markel Fultz. So I tried my best to look at similar players and things like that. But I think the biggest loss I've taken, well, that is the biggest loss I've taken. I'm holding on to my guys like Wendell Carter Jr., who the Bulls just don't know how to use. But so I guess the moral of the story there is do some extra due diligence on the shorter print cards because they're sometimes hard to comp. Now, this was before I was using market movers. Market movers would have been really nice for comping that card. But yeah, I have to say that the Jaylen Brown, and still counting as we'll see in the mail day, has probably been my biggest win. And that's one of those prospectors.
As a guy who plays a lot of DFS, and all these names you guys are saying, Robinson for New York, Wendell Carter for Chicago, Triple J for Memphis, they're all the guys getting foul trouble. They're great DFS players, but they never get any run these. They're always in foul trouble. But I love all those names. Let's move on. Some guys that we're speculating on now that we don't know are going to be good investments or not good investments, but currently somebody that you're targeting any sport. Simon, you go first.
I've been buying or at least looking for, I bought one Philip Walker card. It's a 2018 Panini Unparalleled, and Philip Walker is the backup to Teddy Bridgewater over in Carolina. Philip Walker also played in the XFL last season, and he did really well. He was going to be the MVP of the league before they had to cut the season short because of COVID. But he really was impressive when he was playing, and he had his opportunity once the XFL announced that the season was ending early. That freed him up from his contract. He was able to sign with Carolina, reunited with his old coach from Temple, Matt Rule. So he's handpicked by the head coach. They have a history together, and Teddy Bridgewater is really shaky. I pretty much think he's a perennial disappointer, and I would not be surprised if at some point during the season, if he gets hurt or if things go south with him, that they give Philip Walker an opportunity. It'd be interesting to see what he can do at the NFL level. But those unparalleled cards, if you can get them under $30, the one that I bought was $25. That's around the price range that I'm looking for them at, and that's raw cards. I see a lot of people listing them at 200 or whatever. It's very rare to find that card. It's a 2018. He was on Indy at the time, and there's not a lot of other rookie cards out there. I don't think there's any other rookie cards out there, to be honest. All I've seen is those unparalleled cards. So it'd be a interesting speculative pickup, but obviously he's a backup quarterback, so a lot can not happen there.
Yeah, Geoff, your thoughts? I'm just curious. Do they make a lot of cards with third-string quarterbacks? Because they probably, like what Simon's saying, Walker probably does a lot of cards out there because he's a third-string quarterback, and I'm guessing they don't automatically make the third-string quarterback a card for. I'm not really sure. And also, Geoff, give me the guy you're speculating on right now.
Yeah, it's interesting because sometimes you find that player who, was kind of low enough on the radar where he didn't really have cards or many of them. And then all of a sudden he kind of pops into the starting role. We saw it this year in basketball with Kendrick Nunn. Nunn is a great example of that. He was coming into the season not a heralded guy at all. He was not drafted. He came over from the G League. And so the card manufacturers didn't make any cards of him. And then all of a sudden, next thing you know, he's starting for the Heat. He becomes one of the hottest players, one of the hottest rookies the first half of the season, and he's not in Prism. And he's not in any of the early season sets like NBA Hoops or Donruss either. His first card actually came about in Optic because that was Panini finally had a set where they were printing it late enough where they saw his performance on the court, and they scrambled to make a card of him. But they scrambled so quickly to make a card that they forgot to put his name on the front of the Optic card. So while all of the other players in the Optic set have their name on the front of the card, Kendrick Nunn's card has a blank spot where his name's supposed to go. And so, you see these types of things occur from time to time. It's pretty uncommon, but it can happen. In terms of a player who I've got my eye on right now, so keeping with that theme of going from players coming out of their rookie year of basketball, going into their second year of basketball, I mentioned before, I really like to buy players in that range. One guy I'm going to look at this offseason is Kobe White. And if I've got a graph up here on my screen from Market Movers where I'm comparing Tyler Hero's cards, he is in pink, to Kobe White's cards in black. And the pattern that Tyler Hero's cards have taken is the pattern of most basketball cards over the last few months, where most basketball cards, particularly during the month of June, have shot up in price as the NBA season resumption plan was announced, and we're getting closer and closer to it. But of course, Kobe White is not going to be part of that resumption. The Bulls were not invited to be part of the resumption. So even though Kobe White's cards have moved up a little bit, you can see that Tyler Hero, whose cards were well below Kobe White's for most of the season, all of a sudden Tyler Hero's card prices are now selling above Kobe White's card prices. And we're seeing several other rookies also do that same leap above Kobe White in terms of card prices. So I think White's a guy who could make a good value buy right now.
Yeah, I just pulled it up, by the way, just to your point about Walker. Walker went undrafted, so that's the only reason why I wouldn't have any cards out there. And as far as Nunn was on the Golden State G League team, and they had to cut him just because they ran out of roster spots. And I think he was he had some issues in college, some off-field issues in college, which sort of dropped his draft status as well. So that's probably one of the reasons why he wasn't as well known as others. Jump in here, Josh. Give me a player we're going to be hyping up.
A guy that I'm always looking for good deals on. I mentioned him earlier. RJ Barrett. He's 19, plays for the Knicks. I think he has a lot of room for growth if they hire the right coach. Him and Mitchell Robinson, like we talked about earlier, could be a good tandem. And I've bought a bunch of his base cards, optic base cards, prism base cards. And compared to Zion and Ja, he was picked right behind those two. He's drastically cheaper than them. I'm not going to, lose my shirt on it. I've probably spent a couple $100 on him, but, I think he could see exponential growth with a good second season.
All right, Brennan, tell me on somebody who you bullish on.
All right, this could go very badly, and I might want to start packing up my desk because I might not get invited back. But
it was a good run.
Yeah, it was a great run. So one thing I know for sure is going to happen next year is that we are all going to talk, at least the talking heads on ESPN and everywhere else, about the Golden State Warriors. They're back. They're healthy. They got everybody going. There's one piece on there that's still relatively young and has the pedigree of a number one pick. He actually was a number one pick, and that's Andrew Wiggins. I think that his time in Minnesota, he just lost interest. He was losing a lot. He was getting a lot of pressure for being the number one pick and underperforming. But I wouldn't say that he's been a bust. And one thing Steve Kerr loves about him is his defense. And he played really good defense on LeBron this year if you watch that game against the Lakers. And so I think in a system where he can be the fourth guy if he wants to, he's working on his jump shot. I think just the overall hype around Curry being back, Clay being back, Golden State competing again, I think that attention is going to mean good things for Wiggins. And kind of like we've seen with Markelle Fultz in Orlando, we've left the past in the past. And so I don't think he'll get as much heat for being the guy he was in Minnesota now that he's on a team that's actually competing. So I'm looking at Andrew Wiggins rookie cards. I'm picking them up for quite a bit cheaper than you would expect. However, the guy, he's 25. That's young, but the guys like RJ Barrett and Kobe White, they're still very young and still have a lot of promise ahead of them. Who knows if Wiggins can ever get back to what he used to be? But that's my guy. That's my guy. I'm going to ride with Wiggins one more time.
It's funny though, because I think it matters. Like popularity matters. You talked about before, like people watch their YouTube videos and social media and all that. Wiggins, for whatever reason, like just people don't like him. Like as far as the way he plays, I don't know about personally. I have no idea. But and like he was number pick one of one, and like, is he a bust? No. But are you thrilled if you picked him? Probably not. Somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, I think the problem was, and Kobe Bryant added to this, was he was being compared to Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, and he comes into the league and he doesn't have that mentality, the Mamba mentality, the killer mentality that Michael Jordan had, and Minnesota just lost. And Wiggins has said it. Look, when you're losing, people are going to say what they want about you, and that's going to be the narrative. So now he's going to a team that's known for winning, that's known for a good system, and he's going to be out on the perimeter shooting threes, and we've seen it with Iguodala, we've seen it with Harrison Barnes. That system and those players just make everyone look better. And so now you've got a guy in Andrew Wiggins who's still young and who has all the talent in the world. Could he make a jump, kind of like Brandon Ingram did this year with the Pelicans, coming out of the Lakers, going to New Orleans? Maybe. And look, it's risky, it's speculative, but I think this is the one shot for Wiggins to turn his career around.
All right, let's move on. Let's talk about scarcity. I want to bring Geoff in on this. Your thoughts on some of the high population cards, in the modern cards today, how it affects our thinking of buying, based upon how scarce they may or may not be, and how you deal with cards that are, quote unquote, safe.
Yeah, that's a great question. And in fact, as we're talking, I'm going to call up within Market Movers because we did just recently add population accounts within Market Movers. So just for comparison, let me call up Zion Williamson's base prism from 2019 and compare it to Anthony Davis's base prism from 2012. So we're going to look at both of their rookie cards, and we're going to look at both of these in PSA 10 condition. And this is going to drive the point home. So these are the current pop counts on these two cards. Anthony Davis from 2012, that card has a total PSA population of 1,026. That means in the entire world, there's only 1,026 of these Anthony Davis 2012 Prism base rookie cards in PSA 10. Zion from 2019 currently has a PSA population count of 5,630 for his base Prism rookie card. Same card 7 years later, 5 times the population count. Here's the thing though. PSA currently has over 1 million cards sitting in their warehouse ungraded that people have shipped them. You better believe that there are a lot of Zion-based Prism cards in that 1 million card backlog that PSA currently has. I would not be surprised that when this is all said and done, I wouldn't be surprised if there are 20,000 Zion-based Prism PSA 10 cards in the population count compared to 1,000 Anthony Davis-based Prism cards in the population account. So what I'm saying is that I think the Anthony Davis card is going to be 20 times more rare than the Zion card, which really kind of makes you think about the relative value of, basketball cards today versus basketball cards, back then. And you can see by looking at the price chart that the Anthony Davis card has taken off now well beyond the Zion card. The Anthony Davis card is the top line, but it actually wasn't that way until recently. And, if you look back in this period of time, especially, there was actually a period of time back in April where the Anthony Davis card and the Zion Williamson card were right at the same price, which is kind of crazy to think. But, I think a lot of folks who are getting into sports cards now, which there are many people who watch this show who have only gotten into sports cards in the recent months. I think a lot of them aren't really thinking about the scarcity of cards. They're more thinking about like who is hot today. And more people are excited about buying Zion cards today than they are about buying Anthony Davis cards today. So it's a relative thing. Part of me feels like, more emphasis should be placed on population counts, and I think it should. But then the other part of me also thinks, yeah, but you've also got to look at where is the market hot? And Zion has been, had been the hottest thing in the market for the last several months.
Yeah, what I'm hearing basically, let's say Davis and Zion have the exact same career, hypothetically. Davis's cards, that card specifically, especially, should be distinctly more expensive for scarcity reasons.
I mean, if all things were equal, it should theoretically be maybe 20 times more expensive because of the fact that there are 20 times of them less in existence.
By the way, we were speaking about Zion. We talked about this on previous shows, and maybe somebody else can speak to this. I don't really know how the NBA determined the 8 games, like the 8 opponents you guys are going to have. And we were talking about, the NBA is going to do their best to get Zion in the playoffs. They're going to give New Orleans a pretty soft schedule. Have you guys seen New Orleans' schedule for this 8-game playoff? What do we call it? Not a playoff, but 8 games in the next 16 days. You guys aware of this or no? Anybody?
Yes, yeah. They play like the Kings twice. They play the Wizards. if you stack the final 6 games between Memphis and Pelicans, if you look at them side by side, it is just ridiculous. Now,
it's blatantly obvious, right?
Yeah, it's blatantly obvious. But to the NBA's defense, we all knew that the Pelicans had an easier schedule, and then Memphis had a harder schedule. If the season would have played out like it was supposed to, so I'm sure that they were trying to solve and account for that. But like the Pelicans were given about as easy a schedule as you could get without just blatantly letting them play the Wizards 8 times.
Yeah, they got Utah, who's like in the middle of the road. They also lost Bogdanovich for what it's worth. They got the Clippers. Okay, like you said, Memphis, Sacramento, Washington, San Antonio, Sacramento again, and then Orlando. They're probably going to run the table there. I say probably, but as we started recording, there was a report that 3 guys from New Orleans got COVID. So we don't know who those 3 guys are, and we still are plenty of time out before the season starts back up again. So who really knows? But like under what we know right now, Brennan, it seems like New Orleans, if nothing else, is on a path for like a play-in game to get into the playoffs.
Yeah, you would imagine. And there's also reports that Zion, since this whole the layoff has started, has just been working his tail end off to get into shape and to surprise some people. So, of course, the Pelicans front office in-house are going to say that they're very impressed with Zion, but you don't hear it about every player. And so if he has been working to get better and he comes out hot, it should be interesting. The other piece of this is Memphis is healthy now too. They get their guys back, Clark and Jackson, from what I'm aware. So I think it'll be a good run. I do think the NBA is cognizant that Zion in the playoffs is great for ratings, especially in a scenario where they've lost a lot of money as it is this year. So I think that while there's no guarantee, and look, I'm actually a fan of the Trailblazers. Damian Lillard knows what it means to play in high pressure situations, and they're also healthy as well. So it's going to be an interesting run. The Pelicans certainly did get a boost with the schedule, the way it laid out. But I think what we can all root for is at least Zion and their team gets a chance in a play-in game, especially because, as Geoff just mentioned, he's been hot. A lot of people are holding his cards. And I think that anybody looking to sell Zion would prefer to do it at least against the Lakers in the first round. But, I'm for myself think people might be sleeping on a team like the Blazers, who have a guy that has made big shots and played big games when it matters before.
Yeah, I'm looking at the standings right now. It'll be interesting to see who gets that 8 spot there in the West. Memphis currently has it with 32 wins, and then Portland behind with 29. New Orleans 28, the Kings 28. I'd imagine it'll be between Memphis, Portland, and New Orleans. And I think, what is the rule? You guys, I think it's to be within 4 games, and they have some sort of a play-in game. That's only if it's 2 of them. The worst team has to win 2 games. The other team has to win 1. But if it's 3 teams, I don't know. But it'll be interesting. The right to get walloped by the Lakers. That should be fun. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about buying low. Geoff, you want to show off your market movers tool once again? Do you not?
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, buying low, one of the interesting things you can do when you're looking within market movers is, oftentimes people kind of gravitate towards the hot cards, whose cards are going up. We talked about like Cam Newton earlier, but the other thing you can do is you can sort the list by who's going down, and you can look at who's going in the opposite direction. And if you look at, the cards that are dropping, you see a lot of these types of names: Ted Williams, Frank Thomas, George Brett. The reason why you see them, it's because of their Topps Project 2020 cards. A lot of the Topps Project 2020 cards have been down a lot. This is over the last 30 days. So you see guys who have Topps Project 2020 cards, on here, they're being somewhat influenced by that. But as you can continue to go down, or you can search for other players, and one that's caught my eye recently was I looked at Michael Jordan. And if you call up Michael Jordan, you see his cards are down almost 14% over the last 30 days. And then you can expand and you can look at, some of his different cards and what they've done in terms of price, and how those cards have gone up or down, recently. I think it's interesting for example, let's look at this 1991 Upper Deck in BGS 9.5. There's been a lot of sales of this one, 20 sales over the last 30 days. So it should give us a decent trend line here. And you can kind of see, how that's softening, how you had the rise up of that card, and now you've had kind of the softening of that card after the Last Dance ended. And of course, that's what's fueling a lot of Jordan's cards to drop. This, by the way, is his baseball card. This is his iconic Upper Deck baseball card, is the one that we're showing here in the graph.
The Birmingham Barons
Upper Deck.
Is it a Birmingham Barons card, or is it a White Sox card? I feel like I remember seeing it before. I think it's a White Sox card, right?
Yeah, it is. He's got the Chicago hat on there. I think it's like a spring training White Sox type card. But so with his cards now on the decline, it could be an interesting time to pick up some Michael Jordan. I'd like to continue. I'm probably going to sit back and wait to see what they do over the next 30 days. I'd like to see them plateau. And then once they plateau for a little while, that's probably the point I would start buying. So this is a graph within Market Movers that I'm looking at. A lot of Michael Jordan's graphs I'm looking at every couple of days because I want to see how they're trending and I want to try to feel out where that plateau point is, be a good opportunity to buy, because then what I think you'll see is you're going to see them slowly start to climb again over the course of time. I think Jordan's cards are a great long-term hold. They're a great long-term investment. So if you can buy them at a bit of a discount, coming off of the hype of the Last Dance documentary, might be a nice thing to do.
Yeah, obviously a market correction, like you said. There's too much hype, even though everybody loved the documentary and all that. But after it's over, I suppose that the cards plummet a little bit. It's just so weird how that works. Like Ted Williams didn't have a bad week. Frank Thomas didn't do anything wrong. But I guess you said some sort of correlation with the other cards that are going down, and they just kind of correlate, I imagine. Is that what happens?
Yeah, that in those cases, it was Topps Project 2020 as a set as a whole. The entire set, every single card in that set had gone up, tremendously based on the back of a lot of just flipping. And then the ceiling kind of hit on that market. And then all of a sudden they started to go down the other side as interest in those cards cooled off. And so, yeah, you see all of those cards kind of going up and going down as a whole.
Yeah. All right. With that, our final thoughts before we step aside and get out of here. And of course, we're going to show off our mail day. Everybody's got a card to show off, which we'll talk about in a second as they're saying goodbye and like letting them know their YouTube sources you have, or if you're on Instagram, or if you're on Twitter, all that good stuff. Let the people know. Of course, hit like and subscribe here at YouTube. Once again, Sports Card Investor. Use the promo code Grinders. That's GRINDERS to get 20% off your first payment. With that, Simon, tell the people where to find you, what sort of projects you have in the works, what article you have coming up, and tell us what card you're going to be showing off. Simon. Wow. My apologies. I'm getting names confused here. D-Train Devin, our producer, is going to fire up your card so people can see it. But what are you showing off?
I am my mail day. I got another 2016 Dak Prescott Prism rookie card, Gem Mint 10, PSA 10. I have a few of these now. I have two PSA 10s and I have a BGS 9.5. Obviously, I've been talking about Dak for a few weeks now. I think he's set up to have a great season. And I think if you can get that card in the 325 range, then you're getting a pretty good deal on it. And as far as where you can find me at Yeti Boom Films on Twitter. You can find me in the RG Discord in the Sports Card channel. I'm usually in there along with Chief, Rhino. Brennan's been popping in there. Head Shopper's getting into cards. So it's a lot of good people to talk to about collecting cards. And as far as articles, I have an article coming out at some point tomorrow. Going to be talking about speculative quarterbacks that you might want to be looking at. You can find that on the RotoGrinders page. Go to Sports Cards, and we have all our articles and videos up on that page. And I would also like to add to the importance of scarcity. If you're concerned about scarcity with more modern cards, try looking at RPA, rookie patch auto cards, and just autograph cards in general, because that way you know that you're getting a pretty scarce population on your card. Also, Brendan talks about it a lot, but those Panini Select cards, that's a hobby specialty cards. So you don't get those in retail. They have lower populations. Those are another one that you can look at if you're concerned about your populations getting too high.
Yeah, Brennan, feel free to add to that thought. And, of course, tell the people where they can find you around the interwebs, and tell us what card we're looking at.
Sure. Yeah. So this week, well, to close out the select note, I've seen the populations on those be as much as 8 or 9 times lower than the Prism and Optic counterparts, and I do think that's directly related to it being a hobby only product. That also could be that people are catching on to the popularity of Select, and more will be submitted for grading. But I think it's safe to assume that that Select is a lower print run, just from the sheer fact that you can't find it at the thousands of Walmarts and Targets and all that kind of stuff. So I'm a huge fan of Select, and it released the same year as Prism. So it's not a new set that people don't trust. It was released in the intention of being the hobby higher end set counterpart to Prism, and somehow Prism has just gained more traction as the powerhouse, and rightfully so. The market speaks, and they like Prism more right now. So, but I think we could see that shift maybe in the coming years, but that's just speculation. As far as the cards I got in this week, I got a couple of them. One is Michael Jordan. Speaking of, we just talked about him. I couldn't afford any of his rookies, but the nuts and bolts insert for the 1995 Fleer metal set is a really cool looking card. And as we talked about last week, I'm finding that SGC 10 counterparts are selling for about 50 to 60% of the PSA 10 prices. And there's some anecdotal evidence that SGC might actually grade tougher than PSA, if not for the sole fact that they have the 9.5 to fall back on if they feel like something's on the fence, whereas PSA has to make it a 10 or a 9. So I'm closely monitoring SGC 10s on eBay, and if there's one that's selling at a steep discount from its PSA counterpart, worst case scenario, especially for a card I want to hold long term, I'll just send it into PSA and see if they'll cross grade it into a PSA case if SGC never catches up. The other one is Jaylen Brown. So I know I talked about selling some of Jaylen Brown's, but I also think he's a good long-term investment. I think the core of Boston is going to be Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum for years to come. And so I'm trying to pick up some higher end cards for Jaylen Brown. This week it was the Select PSA 10 Silver that I found for a pretty good price. So I'm pretty happy to have both of those in. The Jordan's going to go up on my shelf. It's one that I want to hold on to for a long time, maybe pass on to my son as he gets older. As far as where
out there, go ahead.
Yep. As far as where you can find me, at the DFS Advisor, both on Instagram and Twitter. But I've been most active in the Discord. There's a lot of good conversations going on in there, and I've actually been trying to do a lot more listening than I am talking, because there's a lot of great minds in there. And I think even if you're not someone who likes to directly contribute to the conversation, there's a lot of great discourse to be had. So you can find me there pretty much every day when I have time.
You can just lurk if you want to lurk, I suppose, right? Is lurking allowed? I imagine so.
Lurking is fine. Yeah.
Geoff, I don't know if it wasn't a competition, but if it was, I got a sneak peek at your card. We all got a sneak peek at your card. You won. Tell us what it is and tell us about all your socials.
Sure. This is a 2019 Prism Draft Picks Zion Williamson Crusade card. But what makes this one special, it is the gold vinyl. That means it's numbered to 5. And I actually pulled this out of a box of Prism Draft Picks. I don't open up a lot of boxes, but I opened this up on my YouTube channel back in, I think it was October, perhaps. And I wanted to open up some boxes and show everyone what the product looked like. So I opened up some boxes, pulled that card out of one of the boxes, sent it off to PSA, and then recently just got it back. It took a long time to get it back, but I just got it back. And that's why it's kind of my mail day, card for today. And thankfully it came back at PSA 10. So I was pretty excited about that. That's what I was hoping for. In terms of how to connect with me, SportsCardInvestor.com. And again, if you want to sign up for the membership, use promo code GRINDERS for 20% off any of the memberships. And then also we're on YouTube at SportsCardInvestor. We're on Instagram at SportsCardInvestor, and we're on Twitter at SportsCardInv, just because they won't allow you to have a username more than 15 characters.
Fair enough. Josh, close us out.
Yep. So my mail day card is 2003 Upper Deck MVP Carmelo rookie. The LeBron in this set is super popular. It sells raw for over 100. But you can pick up Wade and Carmelo for, I picked up most of these. I bought 11 of them for like between $2 and $5. Dwayne Wade's like $10 to $15. And it's just a really nice, clean-looking card. The gem rate on it at PSA and BGS is really high, so the likelihood of buying raw and sending in and getting a 10 or a 9.5 is really good. For social, you can find me Saki21 on Twitter. I am a lurker in the Discord. Don't type too much, but I'm always checking it out. And Saki Collects on Instagram and YouTube.
Sweet. Thanks everybody for watching. Thanks for hitting the likes. You guys hit the like button? Maybe, kind of, sort of. Not begging, but we'd appreciate it. Like, subscribe, the whole deal. Leave some comments in the comment section as well. With that said, for Brennan, for Simon, for Josh, for Geoff, I was Dean. This was RotoGrinders. This was Sports Card Grinders. Thanks for watching. We're out of here. Holler.